presentation is all about Git, the last database that you will ever need. It's an upgrade from Excel. Okay. Sorry. Programmer humor. Okay. Awesome. And Kevin Miller is presenting. Love Kevin. He's gonna really wow you. There you go. I'm setting the bar high. And then you're gonna present on your screen, I imagine. I'll make you a presenter, so it gives you that access. Just give me a moment, and I'll finish up my piece here. So we are brought to you by the .NET Foundation as well, and the .NET Foundation Virtual User Group, which there you can see the slides that are being recorded that everyone else online can see. And they're also going to cross-post our user group meetup, whatever we want to call it these days, globally. So that'll be really cool. Yay. Yeah, they're a really cool setup. Okay, so without further ado, we will move over to Kevin, and I'm going to go give him presenter access. As I sit down and flip things around, and then I will turn my microphone off. Hopefully everyone was able to hear me. It looks like it's transcribing, so good. I have my stuff muted so that we don't have battling microphones. Kevin, a presenter. Now you should have access. Awesome.
Cool. Is it actually like showing it and stuff?
Yeah. Oh, and I'm just gonna point one thing out. Well, okay, so if you have any questions, please post it in the chat and I will bring them up to Kevin. You don't have to raise your hand in Teams, just put them in the chat, please.
Yeah, wow. So I guess I should get started. So like Ari said, the title actually got transposed a little bit in the meetup group. It's not the last repository you'll ever need, it's the last database you'll ever need. I hate to tell you this. One, I am horribly offensive, so if that offends you, I would sign off now. Sorry, not sorry. Also, too, is that if you want a presentation that is about, how you can find the secret magic Git command, about how, like, you can mysteriously rebase and not piss off all your coworkers, this is not the talk for you. Sorry, that's not what we're talking about. So I'm just setting expectations. So, like I said, it's the last database you'll ever need. I really call it this talk because the talk should actually be called something like this, Git, a not database that you might need, maybe not, but I'm pretty certain, someone will say this is not a great idea, need convincing, but it's an interesting idea. And also there are llamas, but that is really, really long. And it typically does not get you admitted at conferences. So, I had to make it a little bit sexier than something like that. So, I kind of went with the first title. Truthfully, the actual title should probably be something about this, like Git databases, a rousing tale of malicious compliance, which is really what this talk is about. You can tell after you're done how much I love some of my coworkers, fuckers. And this will be kind of this journey into what we're talking about. So, any questions so far? Excellent. Good. Moving on, because I don't have any answers. So I want to talk about kind of how this talk came about first. So the truth is that it says in the talk, I'm the director of engineering at Ren. So yay, I'm in management. Yes, that means I pretty much don't do anything all day. My job is to gather data and make nifty little reports and spreadsheets and graphs, and then I give it to people who make more money than me and make them feel good too. So that's pretty much my job, right? There are other things too, but that's pretty much my job. So one of the things that I have to do is that every month I got to go through and I got to gather all these KPIs and these metrics and stuff. I got to go into Jira and I got to calculate velocity and how close we are, and then unit test percentage and all this other stuff. And honestly, it's just kind of tedious and it's a pain in the ass. I don't really like doing it because I'm really lazy. And so I came up with this idea is that I actually had to, I go to my staff and I say, hey, I need these numbers. Can you give them to me? And then they tell me it's in this Excel spreadsheet, dummy. Can you go get them? And then I have to aggregate it together. And like I said, I really don't like doing it because it's kind of a pain. And so I thought this idea and I was like, well, why am I doing this? I could just create a system and then I could have them enter it and then I could do less work. So ultimately, this is about me being lazy. And so it started coming out this way because I had this idea, and then I go to our IT operations people, and I said, "Hey, I know we're in the cloud and stuff," and I said, "Can you just like give me an estimate how much a basic SQL Server database would cost?" I'm like, one that's like, not huge but big enough to get backed up and stuff, and things that the developers could just go in and they could just, go into a table real quick and enter the numbers. And then, it would do some background stuff and it would calculate whatever I needed to calculate and it would just be done. Right. And I thought this is a pretty simple request. And so I bring it up during a meeting with our DevOps people. And I kind of got this look right here. It's actually not true. They really don't look like this. This is an artist rendition. They have a lot less hair. But anyway, so I ask him this and I kind of get this look and response. And it wasn't just like, no, it was like, hell no. And I mean, it was like, I've offended them. No, like, it was like, why would you ask this? And then, so I was kind of told that I was like, that no developer would ever touch a SQL Server instance. Like, that's verboten. And why would we have them ever like enter information into a database? And I'm like, I don't know, because they're developers and it's what we do. I don't know. Yes. $5 a month. So we're arguing over $5 a month. I literally spend more money on coffee. Man, $5. Now I'm really pissed because I thought it was like $50 a month.
That's the lowest end you can get. I think you're charged by usage because you were talking about something that was only going to be sporadically, so usage might expand that cost a little bit, but maybe even as much as $8 to $9 a month.
Man, well, thank God we didn't make that decision. So I got this, and then it became the so no one would ever touch this before, and maybe we should get architecture involved to create a web application. And we talked to them about how we want to set it up, and there are going to be some microservices because that's what we do. And I'm like, I just want to enter the goddamn numbers into the database. So that's kind of how that went. My response was pretty much this like bucket, burn the place to the ground. I really wanted to. I'm still a little annoyed at this, but so this is kind of the response, right? Like, it was the horribly like, you are joking. I'm going to spend a lot of money on time on something that I could just enter in Excel spreadsheets and do myself and live with it and not bother anybody because this is going to spiral way out of control. So that's really how this talk came about. This is so when we think back as to when I talk about what I did, it comes to this moment right here. So what this really means after we did this is that now we've crossed this line, right, where the easy solution is not necessarily the appropriate solution, and we really have to go back and kind of like think about like what the real problem domain was. And after like, I don't want to say soul searching and stuff, it's not like I had this like epiphany, like, oh my gosh, like, a moment of clarity or something, but it did actually kind of lead me to an interesting realization. So I don't know how long everybody's been around. I'm an old guy. Ari's an old guy, Matt's an old guy, Dave's an old guy. I don't know who else, but what was interesting is that when I started out, like kind of the idea was that you would buy like an appliance, like a, an Oracle database or an Oracle server, a SQL server or something, and you would spend just like a ton of money on it, right? And that would like fuel your entire company. And so it'd be easy to be like, hey, I need to add another database because we spent like $200,000 on this database, and of course, like the company wants to get their money's worth. So if I got everything's going to go on it. It was actually really, really nice because your decision was ultimately made for you. And now things have changed, right? Where you look at a problem, you look at your solutions, and everything has a cost to it now. Now it's one of those where it's not like, well, we're going to put it on this and we get to use all this nifty cool stuff because we bought it for this other project, and we're just kind of like riding on the coattails of that. Now everything has a cost associated to it. Like Matt said, like the whopping $5 a month. My guess would be is that their price was not really the thing that DevOps was freaking out about. It was probably little control freaks there, but they're really great guys. When they get to play with their own toys. Anyway, but the idea being now is that, as we think about solutions, the idea of the cost benefit analysis really, really has been transferred to us. And so with that means that a number of doors are closed, but a number of other doors are open for us. And so what we really need to now think about is different solutions to our problem. And so now, we're looking at something that may not. Man, AI generated art is like the thing now. Like I'm telling you, like quick aside, Chat GPT, $20 a month, man. I am telling you, you can't. You like your coworker says something stupid and you type it up real quick on Chat GPT and you like send it across Teams, like you get a heck of a lot of laughs. You yes, actually, I have it saved. I can send it to you. What I found out though, as a quick aside, is that it never generates the same image twice. And so if you do something in the wrong format, that's really awesome, you're never getting it back. It's like a perfect sunset, and it's like, can I have it again? And it's like, yeah, the next time that the universe goes around, it's in that exact same position. You can have it again. Other than that, no. But yeah, if you want, I'll send it to you. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so where we are is that we have to look at the tools that are available to us, and we now have to look at them and see, if our tools can solve a problem we have, but in a way that we're not really thinking of. And so going through this, I had to sit down and take a look at what all of my requirements were for this, and then whether or not I would fit it. Now, obviously, like, there's no big reveal at the end. Obviously, I used Git as a database, hence the name for the talk. So I'm not really giving anything away. But so that's kind of how we need to evaluate things in a modern development. And so my list of requirements and how I came to using Git as a database instead, the first one being is that truthfully is that I really wanted it to be free. After that, I kind of looked around, and that actually excludes a surprising number of options. At first I was like, and I'm like, well, I want to play around with Mongo. Maybe I'll look at a Mongo instance or something like that. And somehow that calculated out to being $50 a month. You could look at me like you're totally wrong. Totally possible. I have no idea how to do the calculators and stuff and make it efficient. Nor was I going to pay any amount of money. So really, like, anything not free, it was too much for me. But anyway, so I looked at running Mongo. I also looked at running like SQL Server off of a personal like Azure data store and stuff like that. And quite honestly, like I said, I'm cheap. I'm not gonna pay money every month to be able to do my job at work. I find that kind of silly. Same thing about like buying your own software, at work and bringing it in. It's like, yeah, it's a tool. They should pay you. Anyway, there's a quick aside. Just remember, if you want to come work for me, those are my rules. So like, there's small pitch there. But anyway, and along with that, security is also a concern, right? But mainly on this one, it was just monetary. And so I started to look at what tools I had and then what could be free. So what I also wanted was something fast to develop. right? Like I didn't like it's a side project. I'm in management. I don't do a whole lot of development. I can't really be like, hey, I'm gonna go off for 3 months. I'm gonna go build this system. I'm gonna ignore everything else. So speed is really, especially it's on the download. Speed was really an important thing. And the idea being is like going through and creating services in a middle tier and stuff like that really was just not within the problem domain that I was trying to fix. And so I needed something that you could just kind of pop up really quickly and get to running and then have it go. So questions so far? Yep. Okay, cool. So admittedly, my problem domain is really, really small. Like I said, I'm pulling in data from like 4 or 5 people, and then I'm generating a report and I'm pushing it out. So in my case, I only needed like 4 or 5 people to be able to access it. And so, with that, you get a lot of swing. And this kind of like harkens back to the previous discussion when I was talking about, understanding our problem domain and understanding our requirements. And the point being is that, as developers, what we really want is it's like, well, how many does it need to handle? It's like, oh, handle hundreds of people. And it's like, okay, we need to roll that back. Because now, it used to be the days when we had the huge SQL servers, we had the huge web servers and stuff. And it's like, does it scale? And it's like, well, I've got $80,000 worth of hardware. I'm like, I can make anything scale. But with this, that's what our actual need was. Great, and it's frozen. There, oh shoot, skipped ahead. There we go. So the next part, outside of the speed of development, this is really like I really kind of separated this out. This is really kind of going back into the speed of development. Although we're going to expand on more what I talked about a little bit before. And that is that really and truthfully, like you can do a number of things, right? One of my hard requirements was that I needed to store data in a structured format. And it sounds kind of like a duh moment until you think about like all the things that you've processed over the years, like weird Excel spreadsheets and CSVs and stuff like that. And so really and truthfully, whatever I ended up with, I wanted it to be easily consumable. And that was really important for me because I don't have a lot of time. Really and truthfully, outside of all this, what I really wanted outside of a structured format though was I wanted it to be flexible. And this is an important thing in software development. This is something that we kind of a lot of times miss up front, myself too. What I really needed is that I had three kind of requirements in this. And one is that I looking through it, it sounded like a really easy problem because I'm literally gathering Jira metrics and stuff like that. And I kind of walked myself down this path, and I came to this understanding where it's like, okay, well, how do I structure the data? Do I structure the data by team? Do I structure the data by month? Do I structure the data by team and month? And it sounds like I'm going down a rabbit hole, and I am, but the truth is that I didn't really know what my answer was. And so when I talk about structured data, the thing that we all run into is that we may not know that answer. So I figured out that I know that I don't know everything up front. Like I know that I want to expand this database. And I know that I didn't really want to sit down and do requirements. I just wanted to code it out and kind of figure it out and then go on forward. But more importantly, I didn't work myself into a corner. I didn't want to come back, 3 weeks from now, like, oh my God, I got to start everything over again because, I built this database structure and it doesn't handle this. Okay, well, we refactor everything because that's how we go down. And I bring this up because in truth, this talks about a much larger concept in software development that, it's really easy to get ourselves into. And I do it. I see my staff do it. And really and truthfully, it's this concept of correctness. And one of the things that a lot of companies see is that, and we as developers, because, we build things, right? We want to build it the right way. But once you start thinking of correctness as not an end goal, but as just another dimension in your problem domain, then it opens up a number of other options. And it's something that software development's had a really difficult time learning over the years. So like I said, back in the early 2000s, everybody, one of my examples, I think it's actually a particularly good example, so I like bringing it up, is data warehouses. And I'm not saying that people who were very smart didn't build them back in early 2000s. It was like all the rage for a while, right? And it's this structured data warehouse. And you get a group of database guys and they get together and they're like, we're going to build it. It's going to have n dimensions. And all of a sudden, they spend like a year or 2 years coming up with like the perfect data warehouse. It has everything fit and like, the dimensions are there and it's got like a star, snowflake, galaxy, car schema, whatever you want to talk about it. And then 2 years go by and they like, we have come it correct. And they launch it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's wrong. It's like 2 years time has passed by and something has changed. And then it's like, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board again, right? Or it was just totally wrong to begin with. Even despite the fact they spent all this time on it. But the point being is that like correctness is something in the software industry that we obsess about, and it really can become the perfect is the enemy of the good. And so going back to what I was looking at is that I knew I wasn't going to be correct, and I wasn't really striving to be correct. What I was really looking for, just get the thing done and let me have the numbers so I can surf Reddit more instead of doing Excel spreadsheets. The important thing about this too is that when thinking about a scenario like this is that, when the numbers I have weren't that big, right? We're talking like a piddly amount of numbers. And so like a bad schema can still be fast because it doesn't have to do that much work. So the amount of time that I spend on it trying to figure out how to be correct is not really necessary. And so, like I said, it becomes that dimension where we don't need to talk about it. So the last two requirements, the first one is I really wanted the data to be backed up, which is something that I've run into in the past, right? So like storing it locally, doing something like that, or trying to figure out how to get like a web app to, call into it. It's really not something I was looking for. So I really wanted something like, free and they back it up for me. I know it's a bit of a tall order. So not pay money and have it do everything I want. But it was actually important. So, looking at the available options, it kind of narrows things down because the data is important. It's not important apparently enough for us to spend money or time on it, but it is important from from my perspective, from management's perspective. And so making sure that it's always available, even after I leave or something else, is something that we really didn't need. We needed. And finally, needed a way to summarize and aggregate data. I love this. And so, some way that we can take data in structured format and do something with it, which is something that's normally overlooked, but that was a big thing. Yeah. By the way, if you ask, like, if you just Google, if you chat GPT, and now admittedly I pay the $20 a month, and you type "give me a cat and an octopus" thing, it loves it. I apparently kind of overtrained the model or something, because then I was like, "give me an octopus," and they gave me an octopus with a cat head. I'm like, that's not an octopus. But it's okay. It's artificial intelligence. So, you got to take what we can get. But yeah, so summarizing and aggregating data is obviously another key thing, because the whole point of the application was on metrics. So kind of leading to this too, it's this whole point. We obviously we know where the end conclusion is, right? We're going there. So the real question is that after I had kind of figured out this malicious compliance way of pissing off DevOps, I settled on building it in Git, because they were going to tell me no, I can't have it, and then the fact that I get to like push a database right under their nose and be like, oh, you administrate the Git databases too, huh? Well, you're going to do work for me. I just love that. And so, the question now, we're gonna get really meta for a moment. Whoa, expanding the universe. So, the question is, what really is Git, right? I mean, when everybody looks at it and it says, oh, well, Git's a source control repository, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of true, but it's not really true. And what I mean by that is that, well, everybody says Git's a source control repository, and that's true. That's what it does, right? That's what we use it for. We use Git to control it. But it stores files for development, right? But if we take a different look into it and we go deeper and say, well, okay, that's what we use it for, but what is it really? What is it under the hood? Then we kind of start to see what I've been talking about before, reevaluating our tools for how we can actually use them. And so, looking at it, once we kind of rephrase our tasks with it, Git, I mean, you could really argue Git is really a document database. And I know that's kind of like a dumb moment. You're like, thanks, dumbass, it stores documents, document database. Yeah. And you're right. But it's not one we actually think of it as in that way, right? We don't think of it as applying it to like a Cosmo DB or a Dynamo DB or whatever. We just think of it as a thing that stores documents. And so now we can fundamentally change what we think of a file is in source control. And if we think of the files that we store in there, yay, functional programming, code is data. But if we start thinking about our files not as a physical object, but a collection of data that can be associated with something else, then we start to understand the real power of what this system is and how we can use it. So, I mean, we think about it and, what are the characteristics of a document file real quick, right? It's a flexible format. So that fits that one. It stores chunks of data like JSON, XML. I mean, it could be C# code, could be JavaScript, whatever, but it stores chunks of data. And truthfully, you can index it for efficient, efficient retrieval. So really and truthfully, we've got something that we store files in only, and now we've expanded this concept into something that becomes a real tool for storing and aggregating and collecting data. So here's where I actually think Git is friggin' cool. And so like going back into like what is Git and what does it do? The cool thing about it that is way cooler than any database, and there are a number of them, but this is the I've run into, is it has built-in versioning. Like this, I love this. Because like I'm sure that we've all been places before where it's like, well, what's the audit trail? Like, why on earth, did somebody update, the person's first name to like, I don't know, Floofy the Wonder Bear or something like that? And then you're like, who did this? And you go back and like, we'll look through the log files and you have no idea, right? And then all of a sudden you spend the next 6 months adding in a field into every table that says who was the last person that did it, what was the last date time, right? And you have to recode all of your update statements, all your in-state statements and things like that. And the great part about Git is that Git does that for you automatically, right? If everybody has a login, like you get it for free, which is totally friggin' awesome. Not to mention the fact that you also get the ability to say, an order of operations, right? Like if I've got, let's just say if I've got obviously a data file checked out and I update that data file and then I go to lunch, scenario has happened more than once, like on operations, I've seen it, and I go to lunch and then I come back and I push that file in, in other traditional database systems, it automatically just lets it in, right? Unless you've got some check-in that you've thought about before, but Git does that for you automatically. If somebody updates the file that you're editing, Git automatically says, hey, you can't do that. Right. And then you got to go and you got to incorporate the changes. So you get that automatically. Like you get a number of things with this for free of just like using this as the database. The cool part about this, and one of my favorite patterns, is event sourcing. So really and truthfully, you get event sourcing for free. Like it's someone's, it's not even you have to explain it to the other developers to be like, look, I've got this great idea. We're going to track every change in order. Right. And somebody looks at you and be like, why would we ever do that? That's the stupidest thing ever. And then you have to go through and be like, look, there's this article from Martin Fowler. I need you to read it. Please do it. Yes.
That's when you fire that.
That's yes. I can do that now. Wait, I gotta go like make a phone call. No, but what? My car, yeah. Yeah. You're fired. I'm gonna help you find your next job someplace else. Yes, yeah. But so this automatically leads to the pattern of event sourcing, which is totally awesome, right? Because that means we get to see everything that goes on the system. And the great part about this, not only do you get that, but that means that we can go through and we can replay workflows, we can replay data updates, anything that we want automatically through using Git as a database. So now we've got a document database, handling structured data, and in a way that we can track everything that goes on. Pretty cool. Now, the truth is, come on, there we go. There's no free lunch to this, right? What I mean is that you can't have everything. You have to, if you're gonna use it, you have to understand what you're giving up, right? And that's an important part of this. This goes back to our problem domain and saying, like, what do I get and what do I have to give up? So actually, I'm pretty impressed with this. Like, one thing I've noticed with ChatGPT, especially, like, I'm really impressed. I actually got no free lunch to show up in spelled correctly. Most other things it doesn't, but I got that one. I'm like, A+ for me. Being the fact I typed it in, but it's kind of an interesting aside. Yeah. Oh yeah.
1/3 of it is okay, and then the rest is like, what?
Yeah, I should have mentioned this. So sorry, quick aside. So what it goes back to the image of the robot I had with having the 5 people on there. What I originally typed in is says have a robot supporting a plank with 4 people on there. I was like 5, 4. You know what? It's close enough. It's late. Fuck it, I don't care. Little bit of interesting there, but anyway, but yeah, so there's no free lunch to any solution that we pick, and this is an important thing to know, right? What can I give and what can I give away? Because some things I might consider really important now aren't later, but I don't get everything. And going back to kind of the idea of us buying the huge appliance at the beginning, the great part is that because we can no longer, because it's now a real cost to buy a server that size, our options are not chosen for us, right? It's a much easier justification to not use a massive database that the company has purchased because they've not purchased this anymore. So we get to reevaluate what we're using where under the guise of saving money. But that means that we have to be more careful on what we get and what we don't get in the future, because we can work ourselves into a corner. So with that, if we compare this to a relational database and a document database, with a relational database, we're really giving up like 4 things that I quickly came up with, right? So I kind of envision this as, if the relational database is the truck and the document database is the sports car and we're riding the lawnmower, I think it's an apt analogy. Although after I made this, I was like, maybe I shouldn't call this the lawnmower example. That probably leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. If I give this to management, I'm probably going to cut this slide out. They're probably not going to like that one. But just saying. But anyway, so, compared to a relational database, if you need things like referential integrity, right? We're not gonna get that. And that has good and bad parts to it, right? It's now up to us to make sure that our data structure is correct and we don't violate it. And the same thing with strongly typed data, right? Like if you store it, I guess you could store it in like an XML format and force to validate it, but truthfully, like nothing's going to be there to validate it for us on the back end. No strongly defined data structure, like I said before. And then more importantly, the crux is we have to give up the SQL engine. And although SQL can be a pain, it is kind of nice to be able to just, type out a single statement and pull back data. We now have to worry about creating our own way of aggregating data. But for me, that's okay. That's not something I'm really, worried about. The truth is, if we want to compare this to a document database, right, we have to understand ourselves. We're not going to get high scalability, right? I'm not going to lie to you and be like, hey, I think we can get a Git database to scale to like 10,000 simultaneous users. I'd be really impressed if you could. Actually, if you do it, I want to have a conversation because I really want to know. But and along with that is that, and this kind of applies to both, is that since we're not really using, we're using a database, but we're not using the engine behind it. We have to give up things that we're going to have to, we wouldn't have to create manually, like index management, right? That becomes an issue to us if our data expands and we've got, files that act as indices. We're now responsible for maintaining those ourselves. And so, like I said, there's no free lunch with this. So, I loved that one. Along with all of this, I realize that the official size limit in Git is 10 gigabytes. And so, you think about going this option, like, I mean, that's actually quite a bit. I'm just kind of surprised. I thought it was a lot bigger than that. That being said, I did look up, and apparently, you can fit 1 billion characters, assuming that each character takes up 2 bytes. We're not going to argue about, well, I use a heavy international, it takes up 4 bytes. Yeah, okay, I understand, right? Okay, just redo the math. Okay, either way, it's a lot. But if you've got, each character takes up 2 bytes, according to Google, which obviously could be wrong too. You can get like about 5 billion characters in a 10 gigabyte database. So, it's there's a limit, but it is really big. My idea being is that, you can't shove that many marshmallows into a bag that size. I also like Ghostbusters, so I'm really surprised they let me do that. Anyway, but so there are limitations to it. And along with the fact too is that obviously as our database grows, it will slow down, right? Retrieval and things like that. It used to be years and years ago you couldn't do. I guess they call it sparse checkouts now. We've had that for a long time. But if you're going to download the whole database, obviously the more files you have in the database, the slower it's going to be to check it all out. So there is a bit of manual management there. That and along with concurrent users, right? The number of users in it, the harder things can get. And so you can only have so many kitties working on the same file at the same time. Things to consider as to limitations for why this not be a good idea. Anyway, so with that, what does the API give us? So the one thing I didn't tell you when I started out is that really and truthfully, when I built this, I built it on top of GitHub. And so I get a few things for free. I'm going to assume that if you use GitLab or you use Bitbucket, it probably has stuff that's similar to it, but your mileage may vary in it. So having the API, what does this really do for us? And the API in GitHub is actually where all of the magic happens. It really is what makes this possible, and it makes it really cool, right? Because we get to upload it to GitHub, and GitHub's API allows us to do like really cool, crazy things. Like, instead of downloading the GitHub repository, now I've got an HTTP connection that I can go out and I can pull a specific document and I can pull down that data, like an account file or something like that. I can make my modifications and I can push it back. And that's really powerful because that means going back to not needing to create the microservices, I've got a middle tier that's created for me. And provided that I don't have to do something like crazy, like do, server-side validation to make sure that my client-side inputs and things like that, it now means that I can host my entire application on GitHub pages and push it to GitHub and not have to worry about anything else. And so it's actually really neat to see it work. And it's like, man, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to involve DevOps. The other cool thing that we get with this is GitHub security. Now, if you ever work with me, I hate doing identity stuff. I don't want to be in that business. If you're storing username and passwords, I really fundamentally think you're doing something wrong and it should be outsourced to somebody else, unless you're an identity company, in which case, if you're an identity company, you're outsourcing to somebody else, you're probably doing something wrong. But to each their own. Oh yeah, exactly. Well, you know how they solve that? They just bought Auth0. Yeah. But anyway, so the cool thing about GitHub with this is that each person can then have their own login. If you're not familiar with GitHub, GitHub launched. I think it's actually like a year ago or whatever. But what do they call them? They call them developer tokens or something now. And so each person can have a login to GitHub. They can go and generate a token, and that token becomes obviously their identity, and then you can plug that into the application, and that means that everybody who uses your application, your security is controlled through GitHub, and it's tracked by individual. And so you sign them up, you show them how to get the key, and all of a sudden your application completely works and it's completely secure. So like bam, your identity solution for using this is already there. I love it actually. And last but not least, The other great thing that I found from using GitHub is background processes. Like once I found this, it's a game changer as far as this goes. So with GitHub, it's totally cool. You check a file in or you do it at a specific period in time. And now all of a sudden you have a way to run a workflow on the back end. So we're talking about aggregating, summarizing data. So now you've got a process where the monthly updates get occurred 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It downloads the repository. It runs all the calculations. It checks them back in. And the next morning, like all of the data is automatically there. So no more like having to build an application to be, hey, did you click the button? Did you run this? Did you calculate it? No, it all runs in the background for you. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. And so, you know, when I talk about not having that engine before, it's true. We don't have that engine, but with GitHub Actions and stuff, it's now gone from, you know, a minor thing where we check in files to I'm running an entire workflow system as far as moving and aggregating and summarizing data. It just happens to be we're not using it for, you know, source control and compiling code. We're, you know, compiling numbers. So, with that, you know, in conclusion, 4 out of 5 Octocats agree it's a workable solution. It's definitely a great malicious compliance solution. 7, you're right, there's 7. Okay, look, I only count ones and zeros. Okay. But either way,
There's at least one really creepy gerbil looking at I don't know what that is.
you know what? I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and ask why I put it in. But either way. So that that concludes the talk. Oh, yep. So okay, so at least 11 out of 12 Octocats agree. If you want a cheap way of storing data and actually building an application that works and runs and is decently scalable and really piss off your DevOps guy, GitHub is could be the right choice for you. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me ramble on.
We could just pull down afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have it like check out the repository and then like calculate and create a file and then check it back in and just have it sitting there for you. Yeah, it's like it literally can do just about anything you want with the repository. Like you can check it out, you can move it to another repository. I mean,
Because you're giving me inspiration on way to run diagnostics on like dealing with test plates or something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, Actions is incredibly powerful. It is incredibly powerful. So, yes.
Your talk is abstract to those of us that are not databasey. Can you give concrete example of what you're doing or what you
Of what I'm doing?
or what you could do with it?
You mean like how to what I could do in GitHub? Oh, so yeah, I mean it's really it's anything that a database can do, right? So you take a JSON file and you check it in, and like it's a document. So if you wanted to check in, like a concrete example, what I check in is like I check in. Each team has to have like data around whether or not they hit the velocity for that month, how far off they were. So each team every month checks in essentially just a JSON file and uploads it to the database. And then that becomes like the database entry. So if you're thinking about an RDBMS, it becomes like, it would be like the row in a table. It just happens to not be a row in a table. And then, you know, it just sits there in like this file system. And so the file system itself becomes either, your data. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So.
Tom and Sean say thank you. Thanks. Enjoyed the talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for saying so. Yes. So funny enough, we learned a really bad problem with Git Squash, and so we don't use it anymore. And I'm gonna say, okay, let me preface this. So this is not how I like having my source control repository set up. So when I say this, it starts off from a I don't want to do it this way anyway. However, if it is this, don't do it this way. So one of our teams has a separate repository for each environment. I'm very much a checking in, like mainline checking in. You have a series of artifacts. Artifacts go through the environment. They're not set up this way. I'm getting to the get squash problem, and so the get squash problem becomes is that if you let's say you've got dev, test, and prop, right, and you've got a series of entities, and you get squash it, and then you check it into dev, and then you check it into to stage, and you've got to go back and fix something, or you got to roll something back, that gets squash. All of a sudden the check-ins start to diff between your dev environment and your test environment. We learned that the hard way. And so that's why I'm against get squash. Only in that scenario, I should say, in that scenario, I'm against get squash. Like, it really sucks to have like 50 commits where you're like fixing comma, fixing other comma, and doing that. And so get squash has its place, but you got to be careful with it. So yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Don't get squash on your Git database. That, I mean, you could, but yeah, your mileage may vary. So that's that's a good question. I have to go back. I'm gonna have to go back and ask that team, actually. I don't know the answer. They do it on occasion. It may be they do it once per release, actually. So, it goes to production and then they push everything else down because obviously as dev things go, right? You dev and you check it in and be like, oh, that was a really stupid idea. And then it just kind of like spirals off into control. I think they do it once per release. I want to say they probably got a little lazy and maybe not, but I think that's what they're supposed to be doing. So yes.
Backend database, existing application, or is GitHub is the application where you store the documents, access it. You get how you want.
So I don't think I completely understand your question, but I'm going to try to answer it. So if you're asking, like, is GitHub the entire application? I mean, it's for mine, I have a web front end. And so, yeah, if that's what you're asking, I have a web front end. Now, admittedly, I did kind of think of it this way. And I could have been a little bit lazier, and I could have gone to, like, because it's like we're all developers, right? I could have been like, look, check out this repo and just enter your stuff in and recheck it back in. I was like, and I'm like, that seems kind of, I don't know, like, well, it seems right up my alley because that's the easiest and laziest solution. But beyond that, it seemed like, I don't want to say kind of janky. It seemed like I could do at least a little bit more to help direct the staff a little bit. The other thing too is that I also created the web app because then I don't really have to explain the document structure to them. I can just be like, look, just don't worry, just go fill this out real quick. And then, I know if they use the app, it's going to go to the right place. Or if I paint myself into a corner, like I was talking about earlier with the data structure, and I need to like redo the structure, then I don't have to re-explain to them like why we're going to the new way and how they did the old way and stuff like that. So I created a front end on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Put in the appropriate point in the structure.
Yeah.
And then for referencing it, you'll check that out. But it's all running through GitHub pages.
Yep. Yeah.
So you have the GH pages branch, which has the application. And
Yep.
then your main branch is going to have all of your data.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you implement any data?
It's all, I mean, like, no. I mean, truthfully, I mean, like, it depends on what you call data typing, right? It's all in JavaScript. And so, like, so, yeah.
Four people use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, truthfully, it kind of goes back to, and it's like, I don't have enough data where it's like, oh my God, if I run into a problem, I do something wrong, that I'm not going to be able to fix it. And so it's kind of one of those where it's like, I could be a little bit more careful in making sure that everything lines up. And it's like, if I run that problem, I'll cross that bridge when I come into it. Cause it's not like I guess I would call like a day one app, right? Where it's like, if it goes down, the world ends. It's like, if I do something wrong and I go back and correct it, I can always be like, hey, data's gonna be a little bit late, right? No one's gonna kill me over it. So yes. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. So you can do it that way. I thought about it. I didn't actually take that approach. What I do is that it kind of where you're alluding to, right? Is that I wanted it to be easier on me. And so really and truthfully, like every time that there's an entry, it just creates a new file. And so if like, hey, we need it over this period of time, instead of me having to like walk the commit tree and stuff, although definitely possible, it's a lot easier just for me to go, hey, just pull out these 10 files and just do it this way. So yes. Yeah, I'd assume it's probably the same API. It's the one that GitHub, like if you go into like GitHub and you're like, hey, what's the API? And they show it to you. So I'm assuming it's the same thing. Like I talk about like scalability and latency and stuff. Truthfully, as building it out and testing it and people using it, like I've never seen it slow down. Like it's always, really fast. So, I'm assuming it's probably the same thing because I would think that they wouldn't build a second one, but yeah, maybe not. So yeah, that could be too. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate it. I thought it was kind of a fun and crazy idea, and I was like, is this gonna work? I'm like, oh God, please let it work. Please let it work. Oh, they still have no idea. They don't have any. Yeah, yeah.
This would absolutely be perfect evil genius type hack that I expect from you.
Oh, thank you. I did tell my boss eventually. I'm like, hey, I did this, and he's like, you what? I'm like, well, they wouldn't give me a database. He's like, that's good. Don't tell anybody. I'm like, okay. So I wouldn't say it took me a few weeks, but that being said is that it's not really fair for me to say that and like scare people off because it's not, it's literally one of those where it's like I got to program it in between like meetings and stuff and like pretending to do other work. So, I may get some days I may get like 2 hours, other days I may only get like half an hour. So and actually once you get the GitHub API, I mean it's not super complicated, but you got to read through it and play around with it. It's really easy. Like if you can program React and you get the GitHub API, it's like bam, you're off to the races. It's really easy. The one thing, and I'll admit it, the one thing I didn't tackle in all of this, I started to kind of go down this path is that I do only check in to main. Like I don't do this thing where it's like you could do it this way. It's possible, and I did explore it where it's like okay, each each file you add or every time you do it, it actually creates a branch and it does that and it merges in. I don't deal with any of that. I thought about doing it. I didn't see an advantage for doing it. I think there are a lot of really cool applications you could use it, but I didn't explore it in this one. So yeah, approved by me. Your numbers suck. Go back and do it again.
Maybe you suddenly need to sign off on it. Well, now you've got PRs built in. There's your sign off.
No, actually, you bring up a really valid point. Like, yeah,
security and hosting and event versioning. There's approval process built in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Sorry.
You could always push to a branch or.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So, I would imagine like something like that. I have a little note taping app. I did that too, and I kind of thought like, how would you expand this? If you're gonna have a whole bunch of people like aggregating data, and I could see it where you do like the branches, like you said, the branches of the PR with that. If you've got like, person A working on something and person B working on something, and then like, you aggregate the data, and then one merges the other, and like you said, there an approval and stuff. I just didn't do it on this one, so.
If you use the GitHub API, that's a public repo. If you use the GitHub API on the website, back and read.
Yeah, actually, I think you probably could. One of the things I forgot to mention in the talk, but I was thinking about like if you really wanted to expand it and stuff, like if you had like different geographic regions like running on different areas of accounts, you could totally like fork it and be like, okay, Southeast Asia runs, these 5,000 accounts and then, these, and then, eventually merge it back in. So yeah, you could build like a massive distributed system that through like GitHub Actions or whatever, once a day, like goes in and remerges the data and redistributes it all out. I mean, really kind of the sky's the limit. I mean, you've got a kind of a general purpose workflow pattern, a massive database system, and a way to host it in multiple areas. So yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, man, I wish I would have thought of that. Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Gotta rewrite the whole thing. Yes, yeah. So excellent. Well, if that, I mean, like we can keep going questions, but if that's it, thank you all for coming. So
Bobby and Samuel.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yay.
Hold on. This one. So this one, this was I think I had to generate this one like 2 or 3 times. This was so this came out, the original one on this one was supposed to be, this is one I gave up on. So this one I at first I was like, give me a cat holding a padlock with a whole bunch of octopuses behind it. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of mundane. I thought, I was like, but what if I had the octopus holding it? And this is the one, this is the one where it was like, generate me an octopus holding a padlock with a cat in a scuba suit behind it, and it apparently thinks that octopuses are now half octopus and half cat. So I'm gonna have to try that when I get home. An octopus outfit. You know what? I will I will ask Samantha that. I am relatively certain that we probably have one. So excellent. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all very much for joining. I'm going to end the chat now. Please come to our next meetups. We're booked all the way through May, so lots of things to learn about, and looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you and good night.
You know.